The Jews became scientific and philosophical in the Arabic Islamic world. The Jews of the Christian world did not, because you see this influence. The Christian world, the Catholic world, was very repressive and religious to the point of mystical, and they did something else. The church repressed science and philosophy. They killed it over the course of time, and that would explain why the great scientific achievements of the Greeks in the 3rd century BC, which are the basis of modern science and physics and in astronomy and mathematics, all of these tremendous achievements which the Greeks had died when the church took over control of the Roman Empire, and they forbade the study of science and philosophy. And that persisted in the Christian world well into the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the Renaissance. But the Arab Muslim world, they were not bound by that. And so they expanded in philosophical and scientific terms, and the Jews did too. Now, there's a difference between the Jews of the Muslim world in Iraq and the Jews of the Muslim world in Spain. An interesting difference. Evidently, the Muslim civilization in the East tended more towards religious speculation, religious philosophy, even to the verge of mysticism, and certain types of religious expression, the ecstatic types. Did you hear the term whirling dervishes? Whirling dervishes are now in Turkey, but whirling dervishes were widespread over the area of Iran, and they represent the ecstatic form of religion. Some American fundamentalists practice that too. You work yourself up into an emotional frenzy to the point where you begin to shake with the emotion, or some people actually fall on the ground, and you burst out of yourself in ecstasy, that Latin word ecstasy, outside of your state of normality. That was the dominant theme of religious expression in the eastern part of the Muslim world. When we speak of Arabic Islamic philosophy, they were either Spaniards or Persians, But there was one Arab philosopher, Al-Kindi, who was from Arabia, and he was one of the earliest. Other than that, all of the great philosophers are either from Spain or from Iraq and North Africa. But the Jews of the West, that is in Spain itself, there evidently the spirit was more freedom, total freedom, you might say, because the Jews of Spain developed this sense of beauty, and they created the greatest Hebrew poetry outside of the Bible. So the great Hebrew poets were Spanish Jews. That is, the greatest Hebrew poets were Spanish Jews. By the way, there were Jews who wrote poetry in Italy. There were in the land of Israel and in Italy. But all of the poetry of the Jews of Israel and of Italy is what we would call ritual. That is, religious poetry, and a lot of them are included in the prayer books. But that was their total interest, their total concern. The word poet from Greek was adopted in Hebrew, so we call it piyut, which means the writing of poetry. These piyutim, or poems, are included in the prayer books because they're religious poems. But the Jews of Spain developed in an entirely different fashion. They used poetry to express anything that you could think of. The great ones produced poetry which is profoundly religious, and it's included in our prayer books, and they wrote equal amounts of poetry which are secular. And secular poetry deals with topics of beauty and of feelings and emotions and so on, reactions to things, and sometimes just funny poems, jokes.